Earlier this year, Apple introduced lossless audio, Dolby Atmos and Spatial audio to their music streaming service. I've been listening to all three for the last few months, and I've got a few thoughts. Hello and welcome back to Ellis Reviews, and thank you for subscribing if you have, and if you haven't subscribed, the button's just down there. Now, I'm not an audiophile, I never have been, never will be. I don't have that analytical ear. But that does beg the question, where does that leave someone like me, and possibly you, when it comes to Apple Music Lossless, Spatial audio and Dolby Atmos? Now, I covered a lot of this earlier this year, which I will link to above, but I have had time now to really listen to all three of these technologies on Apple Music, and here is what I've discovered. Most tracks on Apple Music are now available in what is called lossless audio. And put very simply, this is audio that is pretty much as near as damn it close to the original recording as possible. Now, there are two forms of lossless audio on Apple Music. The first one, I always have to remind myself of this, the first one is 24-bit at 48 kilohertz, and the second one is a high-res version of that at 24-bit 192 kilohertz. Now, for the latter, you really do need some pretty decent gear to hear it, but the normal 48 kilohertz version of lossless is pretty much widely available, like I say, on every Apple Music track, and can be heard on lots of different pairs of headphones. And that got me thinking, how does Apple Music Lossless sound on consumer headphones, including Apple's own AirPods range, but also how does it sound on the more audiophile versions of headphones like the Grados and Sennheisers? As always, I turn to one track in particular for my audiophile headphone testing stuff, and that is Dua Lipa, Don't Start Now. It's got loads of stuff going on, lots of dynamic range, it's very well produced, and it's just a brilliant pop song as well. I recommend trying it out if you want to do some headphone testing. Now, over the last few months, I've just been listening to lossless. It's just the default thing that is turned on. So for this test, I thought I would A/B test between lossless on and lossless turned off on this particular track. So I started with the AirPods Max, the ones with this case, and put very simply, lossless is a bit louder on the AirPods Max. Now, louder isn't better. Quite often louder is much worse because you lose dynamic range, but it's not so much that kind of loudness. It's just, they sound a bit fuller with lossless. It's very hard to describe unless you have a pair of these to listen to it on, but these are still very expensive headphones. So next I turned to what's in here, which is the Bose QC45. Now, these are loved by many people across the world. They're the airport/flight headphones of choice because they've got fantastic noise cancelling and the sound's pretty good as well. Now, compared to the £550 AirPods Max, these are, you can have them for about £329, $329, so they're slightly more affordable than these. Now, with lossless audio turned on, these sound slightly brighter, but you really have to A/B test between the two. The difference is so negligible. Next, I have my favorite current headphones of all time, which are the Sony XM4s. Now, these are actually compatible with high-res codecs, which I think Sony originally invented. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but they are widely known. If you EQ these right and get the right source material, they sound just superb. But again, as with all these headphones, with the Apple Music Lossless test, I just left them out of the box, didn't EQ them, left them as they were, and you can't notice any difference whatsoever if you turn Apple Music Lossless on or off. They just sound exactly the same. Don't get me wrong, really good, but whether or not lossless is turned on or off, they just sound identical. Next up are the Grado SR80X. Now, these are an acquired taste in terms of their looks. I love them. I love this kind of retro feel that they have. And they do feel a little bit more flimsy than some of the more consumer type headphones where you're spending a lot more money. Now, these at the moment are about £120, $120. So for a pair of entry-level audiophile headphones, they're really affordable. So whether or not you like the looks and the fact that you do get some slightly lower grade materials, they sound superb. Connect these to a decent amp and they sound absolutely amazing. Now, for this test, I connected them to the new 16-inch MacBook Pro, which has a better built-in DAC, and that's a digital to analog converter. Not quite as good as the kind of DAC that you'd get in a proper headphone amp, but it's not bad for this test. And on that little setup, with these, you get a slightly wider soundstage with Apple Music Lossless turned on. It's just slightly wider, not by much. You notice it the most when you hear reverb, so echoes and stuff, and very kind of panned left and right elements. You can hear them slightly more clearly with lossless turned on. But again, you've really got an A/B test between the two settings to notice that. So not a huge difference, but certainly more noticeable than the consumer headphones. So what can we conclude from that completely unscientific test? Well, the educated in terms of audio amongst you will be fully aware that if I'm testing lossless audio across Bluetooth for AirPods or for Bose headphones, it's probably not going to work. But what's fascinating to me is that it does sound slightly different, like I say, louder on the AirPods Max. So whether or not Apple are doing something with that just to make these sound better with it turned on, I don't know. That's completely speculative. But the point being, if you're using Bluetooth headphones like the XM4s or the Bose, you're not really going to hear any difference with lossless. If you do hear anything, it's going to be absolutely tiny, or you're probably imagining it. And even Apple's Eddie Q has admitted this. He has said that you need decent gear to listen to lossless audio, and the vast majority of people don't really care about it. Lastly, just for a bit of fun, I tested out 2 different headphone amps with Apple Music Lossless. Now, I'm very lucky to have had 2 of these sent to me by iFi. iFi are a wonderful company. They make some very, very good headphones, amps and DACs and things. And I thought I'd pitch one of their base models, which is the iFi ZenDAC, which I've used for a long time and very much love, with their iFi Pro IDSD. Now, the iFi ZenDAC, at the moment, I think you can get for around about £190, $190. The Pro IDSD is nearly $3,000, $2,749 to be exact. It's a very expensive headphone amp / DAC. So I was fascinated, what does Apple Music Lossless sound like between these 2 setups? Now, I tested it with a pair of Sennheiser HD560S, and once again I turned to good old Dua Lipa and Don't Start Now. Now, the IDSD has got lots of different settings, 98% of which I don't understand. So I left it pretty much at factory default settings, apart from turning on the tube version, because that sounds a bit warmer to me, and I like a warm sound. Now, when you listen to music on the Pro IDSD with a nice pair of headphones, it sounds incredibly detailed. A lovely, wide, airy sound stage. It sounds really, really good. But then I tried the iFi ZenDAC straight afterwards and preferred it. I think there's one very simple reason for this. The iFi ZenDAC has a button called True Bass. You press that and it just gets a richer and a fuller sound and gives it lots of bottom end. Try as I might, I couldn't get the same amount of bottom end from the Pro IDSD, no matter which setting I turned on. Now again, that isn't a particularly in-depth test, but the point here being, I think that Pro IDSD would benefit from a much more expensive pair of headphones and a better ear. To a consumer like myself and someone who does have a pretty good understanding of sound, the iFi ZenDAC just sounds more pleasing. And the point being, if you really want to experience Apple Music Lossless and you don't want to get too into the weeds with audiophile gear and certainly spend too much money, I would save yourself a boatload of cash, get yourself a pair of Sennheiser HD560Ss and try out the iFi ZenDAC, because that little package will set you back £300, $300 probably, and it really, really makes a difference to the sound. On to spatial audio and Dolby Atmos. So just very quickly, Dolby Atmos is a version of surround sound which adds height to the soundstage by having speakers normally in the ceiling or in front of you that bounce sound off the ceiling. It's been in cinemas for many years, but you can also get it set up for your home theatre as well. Now, spatial audio is something that Apple has developed, and that kind of places you inside the soundstage. So whereas Dolby Atmos places sound all around you and above you, spatial audio makes it feel like you're actually in that space. The best way of experiencing this is if you're watching something with spatial audio turned on with your AirPods Max or your AirPods Pro, and you're watching it on your iPhone, if you move your head left or right, the sound appears to still be coming from here. It's really clever stuff, really smart stuff. They've built it into FaceTime recently as well. The idea with that being that when someone starts speaking, you can almost hear where they're coming from on the screen. Super impressive. Terrible for music. I don't get the spatial audio thing for music. I've listened to loads of it over the last few months, just trying to get my head around why Apple is investing so much time and effort in this technology for music. For me, it just seems to remove all of the dynamic range from music. The best analogy for it came from my podcast co-host Rob, where he said it's a little bit like when you leave a very loud gig venue and your kind of ears are still reverberating and all you can hear is a very hollow sound all around you. That's exactly what spatial audio sounds like. A case in point for this is Lady Gaga, Born This Way. If you've got a pair of AirPods Max or a pair of AirPods Pro, stick them in, go and have a listen to it now. With spatial audio turned on, it sounds like it's being played from a cheap PA at a village fete. All of the bass seems to be removed and the kind of left and right panned elements are admittedly impressively moving around everywhere, but it's incredibly distracting and a bit wearing after a while too. Dolby Atmos comes into this as well. I'm less fussed about that really. I mean, it places certain things in different places within the soundstage. I'm very much a traditional left and right stereo guy when it comes to music. And there's a huge issue with head tracking. So if you have head tracking turned on, which like I say is impressive and I think quite good for watching movies and TV shows. But for music, there's two issues with it. The first one being, if you're sat on the desk like I am now, you've got your iPhone on, you're listening to something in spatial audio, and you happen to just place it down there like that, the music shifts so it's coming from here. It's really weird. And okay, if you've got a radio in the corner of the room, that makes sense, it's coming from over there. But with a pair of headphones, the whole point of headphones is that you're always getting a balanced sound. And what I find quite amusing is that after a while, it kind of realizes that that's perhaps not a good idea and shifts the sound back to where it should be. The other issue actually was when I was running once, and I have my phone attached via a strap, like lots of people do, to my arm. And I happened just to be halfway through my run, and Guns N' Roses came on, and suddenly Axl Rose appeared to be singing from over here. He was sat on my shoulder, and it took me ages to work out that it was spatial audio. Sorry, Apple, I don't really get spatial audio for music. It's gimmicky. It doesn't feel like it's needed. And worst of all, it makes the music that I love sound worse. So in conclusion, the addition of lossless audio to Apple Music is very welcome indeed, but it's mainly for people who are spending money on this kind of gear and who have really analytical ears. You're not going to hear any difference with a pair of Bluetooth headphones because Bluetooth just isn't compatible with it. And the weird thing about AirPods Max sounding louder with Apple Music Lossless, maybe that's just me, I don't know. I just find that a bit odd. But the point being, if you're a regular music listener, don't worry about it. If you're just curious, get yourself an iFi Zendak or similar, a pair of mid-range, low-end headphones, and you will notice a difference. But as always, I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you like Dolby Atmos / spatial audio for music? And what are your experiences of Apple Music Lossless? Now, if you've still got some time and you want to check out my review of the Bose QC45s, keep watching for a link to a video where I compared these headphones against my beloved Sony XM4s. But until next time, guys, thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.